What I wanted to do in this video is I just thought I'd do a little vlog really, because I used to buy and sell cars all the time, cheap cars, to supplement my income. This was when I was a print journalist, a magazine journalist, and money was pretty tight. So to help with my rent and stuff, I just used to buy cheap cars and enjoy them. And it was a chance to tick various cars off bucket lists, but also it's the thrill of the chase. So many of us, I think, really enjoy the process of finding a cheap car, going and fetching it, seeing if it's okay, nursing it back to health. The other thing is if you've watched this channel for a long time, or you've followed me through TV and social media, you'll know that I seem to be partial to Hondas. This is my Honda Insight. I've owned this car twice. It's done 330 something thousand miles, and I love it to pieces. I love the engineering, the quirks, I love the way it drives. It's just really interesting and useful, and it's a hypermiler before its time. I'm going to do a massive update video on this car because I've done lots of stuff over the last 12 months with it. But you might have also seen the Honda Element that I've owned for a while now, which I really bought as a family hack in some ways when I got divorced. But it's a really interesting car that's packaged in such a fantastic way. And I've only done one video on the Element, and that video's done ever so well. There is another video coming. I've had numerous things done to that car. Had one hiccup, but apart from that, largely good. But this time I've bought another Honda, and basically what I did was it was a Sunday, and I just opened up my phone and I thought, I'll see if I'll buy the kids a really cheap car. Do cheap cars exist anymore? Because since the pandemic, you couldn't get a cheap car. You couldn't get any car for under £1,000. And I wanted to see if those times have somewhat changed. And either they haven't changed and I've been lucky, or they have changed, because I've bought a car for £300, which isn't scrappage level. It's actually, it turns out that it's got almost full service history and an MOT, and it was serviced about 3 months ago, including a clutch. Now, I'm really lucky on this channel and as my job as a motoring journalist, because I actually get to drive lots of expensive exotic cars that sometimes haven't even been released yet. And there's a thrill to that, driving cars you can't even afford to own. But there's also a massive thrill still, even after all these years, and I've been doing this for 25 years now, there's still a huge thrill for me for buying really cheap cars, bargain cars. And I'm excited about this. So without further ado, we're going to get in the car and I'm going to get a lift over to it. It's only an hour away from me. And I thought I'd just share on camera what it's about. But basically, I went on Gumtree. I don't normally buy cars on Gumtree. I've heard Facebook Marketplace is good, but I'm a bit scared of Facebook for that sort of thing. Although the Late Break Show is on Facebook, I'm personally not. And I found this, I just searched for cars under £500, and this Honda Civic came up. 20-year-old Honda Civic 1.4, so the shape of the EP3 Type R, and it says £300, no offers. And then I look a bit more at the description, and then I speak to the guy, and I'm thinking, this car seems a bit good as a car to drive around a field for my kids, but maybe I should just buy it anyway. £300, no offers. So I'm on that journey now. I've agreed to buy it. I've paid for it. I've got short-term insurance on it for 3 days, and there's apparently a slight noise from the gearbox, and there's a weeping wheel cylinder on one back corner, so it's losing a little bit of brake fluid. Wheel cylinder's not too much of an issue, so let's go and see what this is all about. Obviously it's very cold today, so I'm hoping the heating works. Well, I'm hoping all of it works, but I've thrown a few tools in, compressor, starter pack, basic spanners and some brake fluid. So let's see what happens. Man, I love an adventure. I love a car adventure, irrespective of the value of the car. If it's interesting, it's interesting. We're going to go in the this long-term Smart that I've got. So we'll get in this. This is warm in here, very, very warm. We're here. There it is. There it is. It's there. So I'm going to quickly. I probably can't film on the person's drive, but I'll let you know how I get on. So I brought my kit with me, and here it is. It's well, it was described to me really, really honestly, and it's great. It's a 3-door, obviously, base model 1.4, but I mean, it's in surprisingly good condition. And even if it has a gearbox fault, just realised it's got a CD player, even if it's got a fault, I'm going to just start it up for the first time. Oh wow, well I didn't need, he said that the battery, he said he went to Halfords and bought a new battery for it back in October, so it's had a battery fitted recently. I mean, it just goes to show, right, that sometimes I think more than anything it's asking the right questions and getting a good vibe about a car. You can get a much better vibe when you speak to the person, ask specific questions, ask for specific photos, that kind of thing. It's even got a second key, but anyway, I'll delve into the history and the bits and bobs when I've driven it. I've insured it for the next 3 days, which cost me 24 quid. How exciting is this? I've just driven around the corner to a lay-by, and I wanted to just say I'm really, really chuffed with it. I'll do a quick walk round of it, but I'm going to drive home via a friend of mine called Matt at Jetstream Motorsport to just talk to him about this. There is a slight gearbox whine, but it doesn't sound horrendous. The clutch isn't juddering or anything because the clutch is new. But it's so interesting to see what you can get. So £300, no offers. And when you're buying a cheap car, well, any car, it really pays to ask good questions, interesting questions, and ask for certain specific pictures and videos if you can't see the car in person. Most people don't buy cars looking at them these days, but you've got to know what you're looking at. And you've got to weigh up that whole, like, how much am I paying versus what's wrong with it in the case of a cheap car. And am I scared of those problems, or can I swallow those problems, incorporate that into the price that you're paying for the car? Anyway, let's have a look round. So 3-door, 1.4 EP3 in silver. Tyres seem good. He's put alloys on it. He actually said that it came with hubcaps, and I saw some dents in the pictures, and obviously when you're buying a car for this little, that's to be expected, right? It was supplied new from Anglesey Honda dealer. It's done 79,000 miles. I'll have a look in the boot later, but all the carpet's there and the parcel shelf is there. I had a look online at previous MOTs. That's one thing you should always do. As soon as you see the number plate of the car for sale, do an MOT history check. It always pays dividends. It's got a few dents on the rear quarters, arches, and scrapes on the bumpers, but minor stuff. Bearing in mind, I have bought this car with the intention of letting my kids learn to drive in it off-road. But the fact that it's MOT'd and the fact that it's got so much history makes me wonder whether it's a bit good. And that makes me think, do I actually do something else with it? I could trade up. I could do a thing where I trade up like I used to, sell it for a bit of profit and then buy another car. I'll just show you under the bonnet. The owner did say, oh, it's got Type R carpets. I'm not sure if that's cool or not. But I mean, I've always loved the dashboards of these because of the shifter being so close to the steering wheel. I mean, that's what made the Type R so drivable, that short shift. It does feel amazing. So it's hard doing this with one hand. There it is. There it is. So, aeroplane's just going over. The car had new plugs with the service, and I can hear a gearbox noise. Doesn't sound too bad. Brake fluid's okay, but I always bring a few spares anyway. And I might jack it up when I get home and have a look at any rust situation. I did check the oil as well before I left in it, because I don't want to get stranded. What about that? 300 sheets. So no warnings, no dash light warnings, which is really good. 78,000 miles. And look, I get a thrill out of this. You buy a car, especially a cheap one, and it's got 3/4 of a tank of fuel in it, which is probably 50 quid's worth of petrol. And look at the condition of the dash. Bear in mind, I bought this car on Gumtree without knowing really its backstory. I was simply looking for a cheap car, well under 500 quid as I possibly could. And I think I've got something pretty decent here. Even the headlining's good, actually. Even the headliner's good. Well, I never. I mean, look at the steering wheel. There's not a great deal of wear on the steering wheel. Can you hear it?
That sounds like release bearing.
The release bearing. You take it up the road. I just want you to take it up the road and see what you think. Because you've had a few of these Hondas. Can you hear it? I'll see if I can swap it with him for a Unimog in about 20 minutes. That one. I don't know if you can hear the gearbox when it comes down the road.
It's got to be the actual bearing.
In the gearbox?
Bearing of some sort. It's when you load it up, it gets noisier and noisier the more load you do it.
Yeah.
You give it.
I mean, it doesn't get worse on the motorway, as in it doesn't get deafening or anything, but it's obviously not. I mean, I haven't thrashed it.
No.
But it's
we
not.
used to have no end of these problems like this with the atoms. All the early atoms we had with the 5-speed box, we had so many internal bearing gear problems.
So it's a worn bearing.
Yeah, so I think it's quite a common Honda issue of this era.
It's still,
I don't know exactly which bearing it'd be.
It's still not a deal breaker for 300 sheets, though, is it?
No, it's a good old car.
I'm on private property, just trying to. I've wound the window down so you might be able to hear the gearbox whine. But the good news is that it will probably go like this for a long, long time. Drives really well, you know. So these 5-speed gearboxes, known for the wear, but it is what it is. It's a 300 quid, perfectly serviceable Bangonomics Honda. It was 20 years old, and that with a little bit of elbow grease and a couple of parts, this could be even better. You could take it to the next level and it could give someone really reliable service for another couple of years, 5 years, who knows? There's a lot to be said for that. My question is now, do I do that? Do I do that and enjoy the Bangonomics element? Do I clean it up a bit and sell it on for a tiny bit of profit and then go again? There's definitely a thrill of the chase to this stuff. What's weird is I've had so many Hondas. If you've been following the Late Break Show since the very, very early days, you might remember that I had one of Honda's first ever cars, an S600 Coupe, one of the rarest Japanese cars out there, I would say. And if you haven't watched that video, I would love you to watch that, because yeah, that car was special. 11,000 RPM special back in the early 60s. You can hear a clonk. I think it's coming from that front corner. There's something not quite right about one of the dampers. I thought it was the back, but I'm thinking it's now that front corner. But also it's got an ill-matched set of janky tyres. They're all different, all of them, and I only know one of their names, which can't help the way it drives at all. You know, we live in a world now where so many people's first cars are actually quite new and quite expensive, and I just don't really understand why. Like, so to clear this up, I had actually bought my kids a field car last year, which was a K11 Nissan Micra. That was my nephew's car that he had a crash in, and he decided to not repair it. I bought it off him because he was going to scrap it, and it was way too good to be scrapped. I've since given that car to my other nephew who's learning to drive, and he's doing the work on it and putting it back on the road with an MOT. And then I thought, I'd like to get the kids another car to drive around and practice driving in, and that's why I came across this car. That's the scenario. Bit of gearbox whine, which could last for 2,000-3,000 miles if you didn't absolutely cane it. But the rest of it's better than I expected, and such scope to do what you want with it, right? It could just be a field car. It's probably too good to be a field car. And hang on, it's just started smelling. It smells of clutch. Electric windows work, heating works. Yeah. These dials are very much of their era, the kind of cream-backed analog dials, but I like them more than I did when they were new, I think. I think they look fantastic. You know, what we do know is these Civics, well known for their chassis, control, and obviously the Type R EP3 is like a legend now, and it's only going to become more and more desirable as time goes on. So my son's really into Japanese cars because his sort of generation, you know, they've been brought up on the Fast and Furious type stuff and the JDM culture. Of course, it's not quick being a 1.4, but I don't know, you can tell I'm chuffed. I'm really chuffed. So, pearls of wisdom. If cars seem too good to be true, they might be. I don't think it's right to walk away sometimes if it feels too good to be true. You just need to research, ask more questions, and maybe take someone along who is more knowledgeable than you, or is in the industry, and you can probably get a bit more information out of them. I always go with my gut when buying cars. I look at the pictures and I really zoom in, or I ask for extra specific pictures. I get them to tell me what the worst aspects of the car is. You know, you've told me about the good bits, but what's the worst parts? You maybe speak to them, get an idea of what they're like as a person. You can look up their address if you really want to. I know it's weird, it seems a bit forensic, but 15-20 minutes of research, you can get a better idea of what the life of the car, what's it been through. You can obviously do background checks on how many owners it's had and its MOT history and all of those sorts of things. And if you're going to buy a car completely blind, nowadays, because we've got WhatsApp video and we can do video calling, it's so much easier to get a good idea of the car before you commit. And as I said before, like during the pandemic, second-hand car prices went nuts. Like you couldn't get a running driving car for under £1,000 in any condition, really. Now things have levelled off a bit, but almost I wanted to see if there was still the MOT'd, half-decent car for a couple of £100 left. Because I really feel for people who want to drive around in a unassuming, fundamentally decent old banger. Old banger's doing you a disservice, really. But what I mean by that is you don't feel like you've got to pay at least £4 or £5 for a good usable car, because I don't think you do. I think we've been hoodwinked into thinking that. Those only marks on those seats, there's bits of feather from the jacket that I'm wearing today. Everything else appears to be spot on. In the glove box, well, I'll look at the service history in a bit. There's a key and a penny. And then down here, I actually forgot about this on the EP3. You've got quite a deep well there which has a spare headlight bulb, but there's also a pull-out tray there which has got a supermarket token and a golf ball, which is exciting. Then being the 3-door lever back here, but again the condition of it, people might watch this and think that I've faked this transaction, but I promise you I wasn't even intending to buy another car. I had no plan at all. I just winged it one Sunday afternoon. Let's have a look. So under here, original boot floor cardboard type stuff. That looks like a space saver that hasn't been used before, but crucially I always look at the metalwork to see if there's signs of accidents and then rot and also leaking. So you don't want one that lets water in, because the car will start to steam up and smell and rot. I mean, look at the condition of the panels on the leading edges, because usually this is where you get rot on a lot of older cars, where the drain holes either get blocked up or it starts to rot around the drain holes, or it gets knocked. It's good. It's really good. You can tell I'm into it, can't you? I don't know, I just love stuff like this. I mean, just unbelievable value for money. Right, I got paperwork with the car, obviously V5 and stuff like that. This is the last bill it had, proper bill, besides an MOT. This was in September, and it was what? Replace the clutch, top up with gear oil, carry out a service, which is oil filter, air filter, engine oil, fit new front brake discs and pads, £380. So I mean, just that bill, if you're thinking about Bangernomics, just that bill is more than I paid for the whole car. I'll have a look at the that in a minute, but the bit I'm most interested in is this service book. Bearing in mind, this car could have been rotten, and as long as it still functioned, I would have been interested to have bought it to let my kids drive on private property. Does it have any service stamps? So instructions, that's the PDI, I think it was. 22nd of September 2004 from Pentraeth Honda, Menai Bridge, Anglesey. That's where my videographer Phil is from. How strange. And then here, look. So service 1, service 2, 3,000 miles, 6,000 miles. I think that's, what was that, 4,000 miles, 5,000 miles. We've got, 2011. Big gap between 2011 and 2018. Don't know what's happened there, but I mean the mileage might not have jumped up much. Still 45,000 miles back then. So then 59,000 miles again at a Honda dealer. This is still Honda. Those two are still Honda. 67,000 miles. That's quick fit, full service and spark plugs. That was 2023. 2024, this is the one that I've got. 76,000 miles, new clutch, brakes. There's one for 45,000 miles in 2018 as well. So it's got some service history. How about that? I think this is the MOT, the current one. I know what it's had an advisory on because I could look it up online beforehand, but so yeah, it expires on the 1st of December this year. So I've got all this year if I wanted to drive it on the road. Anti-roll bar ball joint has play, brake pipe corroded, one of the tyres, well the tyres are all cack anyway. But I mean, it's not that bad at all. If you haven't watched my Porsche Boxster videos before, I bought a Boxster a year or so ago for £1,900, and yes, it had a few faults with it, but I actually systematically worked through those over time, and that car is such a rewarding car as a result of that. And again, it was better than I was expecting it to be. Not as cheap or not as in good condition perhaps as this little bargain Civic, but hey, you can't have them all. So what the owner actually said to me, oh, when I had the battery replaced at Halfords, I got new wiper blades as well. So again, it's another tick. Headlights are cloudy, which actually my other Honda has cloudy headlights. It's a job I've been meaning to do since bloody forever. So maybe I'll do the two at the same time. Few dents, which I knew about, and the lacquer's going on that wing there. Maybe it's had a wing. And the lacquer's not lasted as well. But I mean, seriously, I'll take it. I'll take a few dents. I'll take a few dents for 300 quid. It's the MOT length and the service that I can't get over. I welcome in the comments of this video to everybody who's bought a car that's just so ridiculously cheap. It's either a cool car or it's in such good condition that it cannot be ignored for the money, or it's rare but nobody cares. I also want to say a massive thank you to Lisa for giving me a lift over, and it just goes to show that there are still cars out there, right, that might need a little bit of TLC. And by definition of that, you can spend a bit of money on it and maybe practice learning how to do some maintenance on your own car, and it doesn't matter if you get it wrong. Or you take a punt on a car that looks like a bargain, and you know what, if it isn't as good as what you thought, if you're paying such little money for it, you could also break it for spares or clean it up and put it up for sale for a tiny bit more money than you paid for it, and just see what happens. Anyway, I welcome in the comments, what cars have you bought that have been really cheap but exciting, or cars that you've accidentally bought? You know what I mean, don't you?